This article was written by Sydney Butler, who's a writer at How-To-Geek.com. 5 psychological tricks in free-to-play games and how to avoid them. So, free-to-play games, F2P games, make billions of dollars annually. So clearly that they aren't really free as they sound. That's partly because free-to-play games use psychological tricks to make it more likely that players will reach for their credit cards. Free-to-play games have a different goal than other games. The first thing you should understand more about free-to-play games work is that they have a different design goal than games that you purchase once you complete them as the whole experience. In traditional game development, the idea is to sell the player a complete experience that they'll enjoy as much as possible. If it's a good game, it will hopefully sell many copies and the developer will turn a profit. Once you purchase your copy, it doesn't really matter to the developer whether you play it once, many times, or if you ever finish it. At least it doesn't matter in the sense that the transaction between you is complete. For free-to-play games, that relationship looks a little different. While traditional game developers have an incentive to build an experience that's intrinsically fun, that's a secondary goal in free-to-play games design. Since these games generate revenue by continuously taking a small amount of money from you, the incentive is to keep you playing and literally paying for as long as possible. Whether you're still having fun is a secondary. We're not saying that free-to-play game developers don't care about making fun games, just that it doesn't matter why you're still paying. There's a long list of design methods and psychological principles that help hook players and encourage them to spend money, and not all of them are equally susceptible to these various methods. But free-to-play games only need to hook a small number of players to be profitable. Let's look at some of these psychological tricks. Number 1, the Endowed progress effect, artificial advancements. The Endowed progress effect is something you've probably already encountered both in real life and traditional games. When you go to a car wash and you get a loyalty card, they'll often stamp the first few points as a bonus. This is actually a trick that makes it more likely that you'll want to complete the set. This effect is a curious situation where people want to finish sets of things that have been artificially started for them by someone else. In a traditional game such as Skyrim, you may overhear 2 characters speaking about a quest line and it is automatically started, or you may pick it up as an item and be told that there are 9 more to be found. Although you didn't choose to begin the test, you still feel a compulsion to finish it. So don't be surprised when you are gifted, quote unquote, the first part of a set of items in a free-to-play game. How to fight Endowed progress? This one is actually kind of tough, but if you feel compelled to complete a set or a list of things, ask yourself who you're doing it for. Did you start this work or were you told to do it? If you keep going, only you should be able to want to keep going, if that makes sense. Number 2, loss aversion bias. Humans and certainly other primates have a bias when it comes to losses versus gains, and we experience the pain of loss more intensely than the pleasure of a gain. So we tend to take decisions that play it safe with the resources we already have. Usually this manifests as risk aversion, but it can also motivate us to act when something is going to be taken away. When you're given a reward that goes away unless you do something to maintain it, our tendency to avoid losses can make you log in just so you don't miss that 7-day bonus streak. It's a reliable way to keep people coming through the door when their interest starts to wane. How to fight loss aversion? Let's be rational. Weigh up the amount of effort you need to exert to keep something versus how much that thing is actually worth. Only commit to it if you really want it or want the perk that's running out. Number 3, artificial scarcity. We value things that are scarce or unique. Artificial scarcity is a tried and tested marketing technique, but it also works as a game design element. Any free-to-play games that offer items that have different rarities or tapping into artificial scarcity in one way or another, unique items such as rare item drops or unique prizes and rewards all offer a strong incentive to play, and of course, developers can conjure an endless supply of artificial scarce items from within their virtual world. How to fight artificial scarcity? It's just the same as above. Objectively consider how much the scarce item or reward is worth to you against how much you have to work to get it and what it will cost you to actually get it. Number 4, randomized rewards like loot boxes. Like other animals, humans are subject to operant conditioning. You know, Pavlov's dog salivating at the ring of a bell. Most conditioning works by associating a specific behavior with a reward. So, for example, you can train an animal to perform complex tricks by repeatedly giving them a treat every time they do the action that you want. However, something interesting happens when you randomize how often the reward follows the action. It stimulates regular attempts of behavior. This is exactly what happens with the lottery or slot machines. Using randomized rewards such as loot boxes, card packs, or gacha character drops in free-to-play games taps into exactly the same behavior. For a small percentage of people, this can actually lead to a compulsive playing problem. How do you fight loot boxes? These days, many free-to-play developers must legally disclose the drop rates for items, so you can work out how many spins of a wheel you need to make on average to get what you want. Only pursue those loot rewards if you think it's worth the number of results from that calculation. It's also useful to set a hard budget limit for yourself when it comes to loot box spending. The time to stop is when you've hit that budget limit. Number 5. Social comparisons and friend leaderboards. The last mechanic we'll highlight here is social comparison. This is basically what happens in real life all the time, which is that you look at other people around you and get the idea of how well you're doing. If you look around and most other people aren't doing as well as you, it makes you feel good about where you are. If you look at people around you and they all seem to be doing better than you, it can make you feel pretty bad about yourself. Social comparison is a complicated topic, but in the context of free-to-play mechanics, there are multiple applications of this, and one way to trigger behavior related to social comparison is to offer visible perks to being a paying customer, such as skins or items that you can only get by spending real-world money. Social comparisons aren't as effective when the gaps are too large, however. This is why it's also a good idea to use leaderboards that compare a player to those who are just ahead and just behind them, or other players whom they know personally. This promotes competition between players, and that's good for the bottom line of the game developer themselves. How do we fight social comparisons? This one might be the toughest of all, and actually I'm going to break character and say honestly, yeah, because it's just a normal thing of wanting to fit in or just wanting to improve or, put yourself between the ranks of other people. But continuing on, but you need to ask yourself, who are you trying to impress? The thing about keeping up with the Joneses is that often Mr. or Mrs. Jones don't actually pay attention to you either way. Put your feelings of social inadequacy into context and decide if it really matters. Being aware helps responsible play. We're going to close out with this. There's nothing wrong with playing free-to-play games or spending real-world money on them as long as you're actually having fun. Free-to-play games are free to play in the first place because that's an easy way to get thousands and thousands of people to come through the door. While the vast majority of people don't get hooked in by psychological design tricks in a way that's detrimental, the large number of people means that some small percentage of incoming players do become deeply hooked. If you want to avoid that, there are a few things you can do to reduce the chances of this happening. 1. Set a monthly spend limit for yourself that's within your budget. 2. Set a playtime limit by using alarms and timers. 3. Don't add your friends or look at leaderboards, which again is going to be very tough for you to do, but again, I know you can do this. Of course, if you're playing free-to-play games so much that it's negatively affecting other aspects of your life, you may want to take that as a warning sign to take off as well. And concluding with that, I absolutely agree. This currently in this situation in terms of being responsible for what you do with yourself in a free-to-play game, I can use Halo Infinite right now as an example. Currently, that game was data mined to expose that there's over $1,000 inside of their free-to-play store. Now, if you are a responsible person, you don't have to spend $1,000, but the developers know of this game that there is someone out there who is willing to spend $1,000. And if you set the limit for every person to gauge between $1,000 or, maybe their limit is $200, that's just a way of incentivizing that more players will be guaranteed. You'll be able to guarantee that at least 1 out of 10 players will give you $1,000. And that's just basically what that means. But regardless of which, I didn't come here to complain, I just came here to share some knowledge. If you don't know who I am, my name is Chaos the Gamer, and I really do enjoy reading articles like this, in case you're wondering, no matter how boring it may seem. But regardless of which, I hope your day is going well, and yeah, GG's.